In the studio with me tonight is Adam Harding-Jones. Thank you for coming in, Adam.
Thanks, Andy. No, thanks for inviting me.
Let's just, we're going to talk about Cilla, obviously, and we're going to talk about Cilla because you knew her quite well, didn't you, latterly? Sort of.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to that from 2008, wasn't it?
It is 2008, 2009, and I was requested by the theatre to pick her up, bring her to the Empire for what was going to be one day's sort of press coverage with the lead up to the panto. So this was a couple of months or so before the panto actually started, and all it was to collect her from the Empire and take her back to London with someone else, a colleague that she had in the car with her. And until I got to the Empire, I didn't really know who it was I was picking up because it was very last minute. I was rung up, can you be at the Empire within half an hour and drive to London? Yes, of course I can. Because it's a quite a nice job. It's not your usual Manchester airport or trip over to Liverpool. It was a long distance run, so I thought, yeah, brilliant, that's great. So I got there, and before I could get a chance to say, okay, what am I doing? Surprise, surprise! Cilla Black walked towards me, and it was to take her home to a place in Denham, and then to go on to London itself into the city to drop her colleague and friend off. So we did, and I drove into. When I picked her up, I had tight hold of the steering wheel because I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got Cilla Black here in the car. I just remembered her from Surprise, Surprise and Blind Date. I used to watch it. She was Saturday night. So I was really nervous to start off with, and respectful, obviously, as you should be. And she was just so friendly, so warm. Put me at my ease straight away. So by the time, to be honest, we got to her house, I'd sort of felt as if I'd known her for a lot longer.
You must have been nervous though. Now those first sort of few moments. I mean, the idea of you don't get much bigger than Cilla, do you? Really?
Not in this country, really. I mean, she was a '60s icon. I mean, I knew of her music career and I knew of her history, but really, for someone of my age, it was very much about Saturday night TV, and she was Saturday night TV for years with Surprise Supplies and Blind Date. So just in that period of her career, she was absolutely on top form. So I was very much aware that I had someone very important in the car, and was scared to death really, but. As I say, by the time we got to London, I felt so relaxed. She was lovely. We chatted in the car on the way. She was warm and friendly, and obviously I was aware not to be there chatting. I waited for her to enter into conversation because I didn't want to burn her ear or ask her lots and lots of questions all the way down to London. But she was just so lovely. So we dropped her off, and I said, lovely to meet you, and I've really enjoyed my, the last couple of hours in your company, and I hope you enjoy Liverpool when you come up for the pantomime. And then we went into London, and I dropped her friend off, and we got the stuff out the back of the car, and underneath these bags, I was told, oh dear, this bag belongs to Cilla.
Oh no.
And it was, oh, okay. And then there was a few minutes of, well, what are we going to do with this? I said, well, I'm dropping you off in London, and I'm turning round and I'm going straight back to the northwest. I said, I'll pass junction 1 of the M40. I can drop it off. I said, it's about 20 minutes out my way, and I'm more than happy to drop it off on the way back. And at that point, the phone went, and it was Cilla. So there was a conversation, and obviously it was brilliant. Adam will drop it off. So I went back, gave her the bag, and I said, and again, nice to see you. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And I thought, well, that was my experience of meeting Cilla Black. Something to tell, friends and, family and that sort of thing. I spent time with Cilla Black.
But of course, it went on to be so much more than that, didn't it? How did that happen?
Well, about a month or so later, maybe a little bit longer, I was at home and the phone went. And I answered it, and they said, is that Adam? And I said, yes, it is. Well, we know you, but you don't know us. And I thought, oh, that's an introduction. And we said, we're, on behalf of Cilla Black, she's asked personally, will you look after her for all of her time when she comes up to Liverpool for the pantomime? And, I got my diary out. No, I didn't. It was straight away. It was absolutely. And they said, well, what it will be is you will need to take her backwards and forwards to the theatre, to the hotel. anything else she requires in the evening. But once a week, you will drive her down to London because they have a day off on the Monday. So Sunday evening, she'll probably want to drive back to London, possibly to go and check everything's okay at home and then bring her back Tuesday morning. And that was what it was.
Incredible. I mean, I remember the time because I was covering the launch the day you met her. I was covering that for Granada Reports as well. And actually, I managed to dig through the archives before to try and get the interview. So let's just have a little clip of Cilla speaking on that day, on the day you met, when basically, let's just take us back 2008. It was Capital of Culture year. They were announcing this almost the grand finale for the year, weren't they, really?
It was the end of the Capital of Culture. The Capital of Culture, there'd been so much investment into Liverpool, so much, development. And this pantomime was the end of the year, and it was the big crescendo to the end of the year. And they had Les Dennis, they had Ted Robbins, there was Jennifer Ellison, and it was all Liverpool cast, all Liverpool-born Liverpool cast. And they, Cilla came out of retirement to do this pantomime. She'd not done anything really since then, and it was a big thing to bring her to the city. Yeah. I mean, obviously, my experience with her, she absolutely thrived and loved it, but to bring her to the city was a really big thing at that time. Cilla Black, she was so present. You knew when she walked into the room. She sort of lit up the room when she came in. Everyone turned around. You knew Cilla was there. And, it was a little part of your childhood whenever you saw her, because you associated her with so many different things for so many different periods. But at the same time, as I got to know through the period of being with her, she was Cilla. She'd approach the stage door. I'd say there's a load of people outside, and she would turn into Cilla Black. It's, without actually seeing it, it's sort of difficult to describe, but she became Cilla Black. When she'd get into the car, she was Cilla. I mean, we would drive down to London on a Sunday, and we'd get in the car and we'd listen to Pete Price on the radio until we got out of, the North West area, because, she'd just been working with him in the theatre. Yeah. So we'd listen to Pete, and, he used to giggle and laugh along at some of the conversations and some of the people ringing up, and we'd have a good laugh. And once we got out of that, I'd said to her, what sort of music do you like, Cilla? Because, I'll play some music in the car or whatever just to sort of relax. And she said, well, I like a bit of Rod Stewart. And so I'd play a bit of music that she liked. And then she'd hand me the keys to the house. I'd put them sort of by the side of me, and she'd settle back and she'd sort of have a sleep, because it had been a really long day through work and then, the long drive back to London. But once we got to the house, I'd open the gates, pull up outside the front door, open the front door, and while I'm bringing all the bags in, she's flicked the lights on, she's kicked her shoes off, and she's getting the post. Like you do when you've been away for a few days. Yeah. The first thing you do is you're picking up the post by on the side, seeing who's, what letters there are and that sort of thing. And she turned round to me and said, Adam, are you going to be all right driving back? It's a long journey back. Will you be okay? And I said, yes, I'll be fine. It's not too bad. I'll probably stop on the way back and just stretch my legs and get a cup of coffee. And she says, well, no. She says, come inside. She says, don't rush off. Come and have a cup of tea. So she'd bring me into the house. We'd go into the kitchen. She'd be making a cup of tea. She'd be at the kettle and making a sandwich. And I'd be sitting at the dining table, chatting to her. But it was like having your mum fuss round after you, and she'd be saying, are you sure you're going to be okay? And she'd just, as I'd go, she said, well, make sure you drive carefully going back. And it was like, thanks, Cilla. But the feeling that I got was wanting to look after her, not having to, wanting to, because it brought out that feeling of wanting to look after someone who, reminded you of your mum when I was with her. Not Cilla Black. She reminded me of my mum, of fussing round. And while I was looking after her, I very much felt like she was looking after me a little bit as well.
That's lovely. We're talking about Cilla Black, of course, who we lost at the weekend. It's Radio Clatterbridge, 1386 AM. You've had a number of sort of big names, I suppose, in the back of your limo and what have you,
absolutely. I mean, to be honest, Cilla was one of my first sort of big jobs, if you know what I mean. Someone who was well known, who was in the public eye, And she set the bar really high, to be honest, because the relationship that we sort of built up, obviously it's employee-employer, but the sort of boundaries really blurred quite a bit, really, because she was so lovely to me, and it felt like, as I said before, that I was looking after someone who was just more than, a big name. It was like, I've had this sort of feeling towards her that, you want to make sure she's okay, you want to look after her, because she brought that, motherly feeling out, really.
And obviously, she was a mother. She's got the 3 lads. She, at the time, was mid-60s, coming out temporarily out of retirement. Yeah. So she was obviously doing the show and going home and having a bovril, was she?
Well, occasionally, but she's the same age as my mum. Really, my mum is she's 71, just recently. But we'd be into the show during. I think we got there about lunchtime, because there's all the rehearsal beforehand, and there's going over what had happened the night before, and getting herself ready and run through and that sort of thing. So it wasn't just turn up and sort of do the show. We were there a decent amount of time before. And then obviously there's the downtime before the second show, because there was 2 shows each day, and they were quite high intensity. There was no, she wasn't sitting around. She was swinging from the chandeliers. They brought her down on wires for the opening of the show, and it was like, oh my God. And she didn't particularly like heights, but they brought her down, and it was a high impact sort of show. And then afterwards, it would be there'd be nights where she'd want to go out, either out for a meal. But then, there was a few times with Pete Price, that we'd be out in town. And the one that... So,
sorry, you'd go out in town with Pete Price and Cilla Black?
Yeah.
In, public or sort of...
Oh, absolutely, but obviously... It wasn't announced, we'd just turn up impromptu to, obviously restaurants would be booked, but to, some of the clubs in town, it would be, she wanted to go out, she wanted to have a laugh. And, she really enjoyed it. She really enjoyed the atmosphere. She really enjoyed, it was Christmas in Liverpool, and there was no hats, there was no sort of, hiding under sort of coats and hoods. And it was like Cilla was out in town to have a good time. And I'd be there with them, walking around, and we'd be, Matthew Street and various other places up that sort of neck of the woods. And people would see her, and they'd see her from across the road, and they'd be shouting, Cilla. Groups of lads out on a Friday night wanting to go out and, office parties and all that sort of thing. So there'd be groups of people who would see her and automatically head towards her like a magnet. And I'm thinking, oh dear. Well,
just to explain the background, you were saying you used to be in the force, so you're sort of aware of, I suppose, dangerous situations, at least.
Well, I'd like to think so. I'd been in the police for 18 years, and I'd came out and started this sort of chauffeur business.
So alerts must have been going off all around. Oh, yeah. You must have been panicking.
Because when you think about it, she's such an important person, and she's so tied in with the history of Liverpool and Liverpool. She was my responsibility.
So no bodyguards around her, just you. You're it.
I was it. Yeah, I was it. But as I say, my thing was, I do not want anything to happen to her while she's in my care. Really, in the middle of Liverpool on a Friday night at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. But it was quite strange. It was funny, really, because so many people just wanted to say hello. Sometimes that was like there was 5 or 6 people all together wanting to say hello at the same time, because it's Cilla Black, and they just wanted to come and touch her, put their arm around her, have a photo, have a selfie, kiss her on the cheek and that sort of thing. And it's me judging at the time, what they're like, how drunk they are.
Yeah.
But to be honest, there was never, ever anything that would make me worry, or never anything that I thought, this, we're going to have to get back in the car or that sort of thing.
That's great.
People just wanted to come and say hello to her. And, she loved it.
I was just going to say, how was she about that? Because, again, she's come out of retirement. She hasn't probably had to deal with that in public maybe for a while. Certainly not in Liverpool.
Not in that high, because, everyone knew she was in Liverpool. There was a big, big advertisement campaign about the theatre, about the pantomime. The pantomime was on, so people knew that Cilla was in town. So when they saw her, that was that. She just attracted people. They just saw her and just wanted to come over and speak to her. But she loved it. She thrived on it. She really enjoyed it. She loved being in Liverpool. She really thrived on the attention, and that people wanted to come and say hello to her. I mean, when we used to go to the stage door, she could have gone out the side door if she wanted to, and I know people who have done. However, she wanted to go through the stage door. People had come to see her, they'd paid their money, and she wanted to, thank them, say hello, and let them see the Cilla that they'd grown up with.
Okay. It came to an end. Obviously, it was only ever going to run for so long. When the show did come to an end, was that it? I mean, did you sort of part company, or did you stay in touch? How did it work?
Yeah, I mean, Cilla was there with Robert. Robert was her manager and looked after her, and he was with her all the time. And I got to know Robert, and he's such a lovely guy. And obviously, my thoughts over these last few days have been with them. Having lost my dad 3 years ago, and he was, he passed away here at St John's Hospice. So that's why I have such a link with Clatterbridge, and so my thoughts are sort of with Robert at the minute. Robert, Ben and Jack of having lost their mum. So I what happened was I said my goodbyes, and it was really nice. But before that, they had the cast party, the cast farewell. All the cast get together and sort of, a bit like when you're at school and you have the shirts and everyone signed the shirts. Well, everyone had the production poster. So we were all given a production poster, me included, and everyone was signing each other's posters. And Cilla did mine to Dear Adam. Lots of love, from Cilla, which was really nice. And then after, we went to the cast party, and at the cast party it was like normally, the driver would be left outside. She'd go in, and I'd wait in the car, waiting for her to come back out. But no, as with the party that they had to open the pantomime, to introduce the cast to each other and everything, it was, come in, Adam, come and sit by me. And then when it was time to go and I was involved, I felt very much part of the company, not sort of that there's the driver and there's there's the cast, there's the driver and there's the theatrical, the musical people, and the artists. It wasn't like that at all. So she'd invite me in, come and sit down next to me, and then when it was time to go, she'd say, come on. She'd link my arm, and she'd say, take your fairy godmother home now, which was really funny. And we'd walk out, she'd link my arm, and it was clear that we got on really well. So after I dropped her off and said goodbye, it was pleasure having that time with you, and hope to speak to you again and whatever. And she said, I'll keep in touch. And I would occasionally get a phone call. Now a lot of the time it would be she'd ring up and she'd recognise my voice and say, "Oh, Adam, I was trying to ring Biggins. Your number is so much like his. But how are you, Chuck? What are you up to?" And more so, I kept in touch with Robert, and I went down to London. I was invited down to London a couple of times, sort of after that event, and I've kept in touch with him. So it's been quite funny, really. It's been an ongoing sort of contact, really.
She obviously thought very highly of you. I mean, how do you deal with what's happened over the last week? It was such a shock, I think, wasn't it, for so many people? How are you?
It's strange, really. I mean, when I found out on Sunday, it was, as you do, oh yeah, I don't believe that, because there was no thinking that was going to happen at all. It was not like she'd been not well, or there'd been a lead up where you think, oh, someone is not quite well, and it was just completely out of the blue. So when it came on, I thought, oh yeah, no, don't believe it. And friends were ringing me up and they said, have you heard about Cilla? No. So it was then when I looked and went to the BBC or to ITV and thought, oh it seems like this is real. I don't know. I felt it's hard to put into words. It's a strange feeling because Cilla's an icon. She's a piece of British, 60s and 80s culture. So much more than Elvis, Sinatra, Cilla. You only have to mention one word. And it's weird because I spent that period of time with her where I was with her sort of all day and all night, and I'd have her, for 4.5 hours each week, travelling down to London to myself. It was like I had an audience with Cilla every Sunday evening, but at the same time, I remember from Blind Date, so it's difficult to separate that celebrity, that well-known entertainer, and the person I knew, the person who treated me so well and was such a lovely person. So it's strange. It's a strange feeling, really, because it's someone who I grew up with, who I saw on telly, who I then spent time with and got to know her and the boys and whatever. And it feels like you've lost an extended part of the family. It feels like you've lost a family member for me, because she was so much, she set the bar really high. And even though I looked after an awful lot of people after them, some very well-known people, when friends would say to me, "Who have you looked after, Adam?" Cilla would be the first name that would come to mind, even though, there's been very sort of many people since then.
Adam, thank you for sharing your memories, and thank you for coming in.
No problem. Thanks very much.